Hi guys, and I am back with another discussion video. I have three main topics I wanted to discuss. Russian ships, is it just beating the dead horse? XVM, does stats make this game toxic or more positive? And RPF in ranked. Yeah, so just before I get onto that, I really hope you guys are enjoying my videos. I'm enjoying making them. I know that I'm not the most popular guy on YouTube and I don't really have very many subscribers, but I've only been doing this for about a month, so I hope it grows pretty soon. Well, I don't really mind, I'm enjoying doing it anyway. Anyway, so let's get down to the discussion. Okay, so as we know, in 0.6.2, there are new Russian ships coming out. It is the DD split line, with new DDs going up to T10. But the same argument keeps coming up, especially now with the new Russian ships. Why are there so many Russian boats when roughly 50% of them, or more than 50% of them, are paper ships that never even existed? And they're significantly better than the real ships, that navies that actually did things. So is this really fair? You know, does this really give a positive outlook for World of Warships? Or should we be looking this at a more kind of arcadey, kind of science fiction-y type viewpoint? Now, a lot of people are saying that also that the Russian Navy barely engaged in World War II combat. There was a documentary that I watched a few months ago where a German historian basically stated that the World War II ships in the Russian Navy were insignificant and largely useless. He also said that Russia barely engaged in any naval combat whatsoever. Their boats were unreliable, and for example their torpedoes were insignificant. But as we know, World of Warships is made by a Russian game developer. The biggest market in terms of players is in Russia, and we must kind of respect that. You know, this game isn't necessarily designed for the so-called Western market. If the most of the players want to see more Russian boats and they want to see something that they're interested in, I'm sure that Wargaming is going to design boats for the player base that they actually want to see. I play on North American server mainly because I prefer the community over there. I feel that people are of the same culture, so therefore they're not, you know, pitting themselves against other nationalities. For example, in Europe, you've got the, most people speak English, and then you've got a lot of German speakers. You don't know what they're saying, so it's hard to communicate. You have like French and Spanish speakers and Dutch speakers, and it can be quite frustrating, especially with the clash of cultures sometimes. So, but that does mean North American server is the smallest server out of all of them, but they do seem to have a larger voice compared to its player base size. So this is why this keeps coming up. A lot of people are thinking, well, why are there so many in there? Especially when you get 1950s and 60s designs going against World War II designs. A lot of players kind of see that as, well, how bad was the Russian Navy if they, are getting comparable boats 20, 30, sometimes even 40 years after the opposing Japanese, British and American sides, and even the German side as well. And another example of this is I heard about their bringing in Arctic Convoy, which was 100% British led. This was where the Russians were being attacked by the Nazis at the time in World War II, and basically Russia did not have enough supplies to defend itself. This is when Russia, I don't want to say switched sides, but started, the Allies was really needing Russia to switch sides. So we helped them, and they essentially fought back the Germans, which is very useful of them. But this Arctic Convoy is a really interesting story. I watched a documentary about, I don't know, 10 years ago, and it was hosted by Jeremy Clarkson, which is like my favourite person ever in the world. But he did a really good documentary on it. But what was also interesting is that although it was 100% British led, and it was an amazing feat, one of the most amazing feats in World War II, in my opinion. But it wasn't really commemorated by the British, which essentially is a scandal in itself. And it was hugely commemorated and respected by the Russians. But what World of Warships has done is they've included Russian ships in that. So they're implying that, I know it's not necessarily historical, but they're taking a historical event and changing the narrative, which is questionable in my opinion. But I don't know much more about that in itself. I think I will be doing some more research into it and be looking forward to see what's going to happen with that. I guess another reason why the Russian Navy does have a lot of paper ships in the World of Warships is that there are a lot of holes to fill. Clearly that Russia isn't exactly a naval power, with only small amounts of access to the sea. It was more of a land-based empire, if you want to call it an empire. So a lot of paper ships would have to be done in that. But anyway, the game is based on, a lot of what's inside the game is based on what if this actually happened, rather than this is a paper ship, let's just put it in here because we need to fill a hole. Overall, one of my favourite lines, cruiser and destroyers, especially destroyers, is the Russian destroyers and Russian lines. I find them really good fun. I find that they do have a very fine line, but when you play that fine line, they are great ships. So overall, my opinion being is yes, saying oh no, more Russian ships is beating a dead horse, but this is a game. I don't necessarily play it for the historical accuracy, I play it for the historical interest, but not accuracy. I think a lot of people don't necessarily play it for the historical accuracy, they also play it for the interest, and I know that overall I think Wargaming is doing sort of the right thing. I didn't really know anything about the Russian Navy before, and now I do, and it's actually quite interesting. Anyway guys, so tell me what you think on that particular subject, and I'm going to move on to stats. Yes, stats, XVM. I don't know what XVM stands for, but I heard it came from World of Tanks, where there was an in-game stat monitor or something similar to that. I don't know exactly what it was, as I don't really, or haven't ever really played World of Tanks. But XVM is back. It's been back for the last few weeks, I think. It's been released on wowreplays.com. They've got an application which you can run on a second screen where you can view the stats of the enemy and your allies. And a lot of people are angry. People hate stats. People hate stats because, well, I don't really understand because I absolutely love stats. But anyway, people hate stats because they kind of think that it's going to create an elitist nature. That if you have better stats than someone who has worse stats, they are to blame for the loss, and they're excusing their bad gameplay. But let's think about it more objectively. Rather than taking it from an emotional point of view, let's think about it objectively. Not everyone has to use stats. People who want to use the stats can use stats. Stats don't have to be used in a negative way. Stats can be used for a positive. So it depends on your own position and your own your own personality. I think it really comes into play here. But anyways, I've kind of come up with a few points that I think would be interesting to talk about. So I think stats provide information on those who to target down first. This is if you can see that there is a player with like 60 or 70% win rate, and if you don't target him first, you know that the enemy team are going to have a bigger advantage the longer he's alive. But if he is dead quicker, your team's going to win better. And you can tell that to your allies, and you can say, look, focus on this guy, he's got really good stats. If we can beat him, then we can win the game easier, and we can target down the easiest guys last. And I think this is especially powerful when you're playing a CV, because there's not too much that can counter a CV. You don't have to avoid enemy boats other than avoiding enemy AA, and you can just go target a particular battleship or cruiser or destroyer with your bombs and your torpedoes, and you can really take them down. Take good players down quicker, therefore winning better and easier, and improving your own win rate and more enjoyable. And this also means that worse players can live longer and actually get more damage done and improve. So in that sense, I do think it's good, especially for CVs. Now, if it's CV v CV, I heard a guy in the forums, he actually, not using a stat monitor, when he gets into a game, the first thing he does is he opens up, various stat sites and puts the CV's stats in and see whether he's a better player or not. Because if he's a very, very good player, he knows he's going to have to try and defend his CV as hard as possible. And he's going to have to take down the planes and attack the CV, the most important thing. However, if he's not a very good CV, he knows that it doesn't necessarily have to, it's not a huge problem. Obviously, the most important thing is the actual performance in battle, but at least it gives you that peace of mind of thinking, okay, well, I know that if I do want to attack him, I can easily strafe all his planes because he may not know the best way to play a CV. But again, this comes back to the point, are you being elitist here? Are you deciding that just because someone has a lower win rate or a lower damage rate in a certain ship or overall, does that mean they're a worse player because they could be improving? I mean, my opinion, there is no smoke without fire. If someone does have a very low win rate, it probably means they're not as good as someone who has a very high win rate. Win rate obviously not being the best stat to prove how good a player is, but I'm just using that as an example. And a lot of people do tend to ignore stats. They ignore this just because someone has a high win rate. They can still be a terrible player, or because there's someone on a low win rate, they can't do a Kraken and get 3,000 XP. I mean, I haven't got an amazing stats. I'm 52% win rate. I'm nowhere near anywhere. I'm just marginally above average. I can't necessarily carry an entire game, and I think my stats reflect that. I know my ability. I know that my stats do generally reflect my ability. I do sometimes, well, not sometimes, I would say a fair amount of the time I do come top of the team. I would say more than the average. But then again, also a fair amount of time I can come mid, and sometimes I can even come bottom if I make a mistake and die pretty early on. So my stats do reflect my true playing ability. So I believe that stats is a good measure of someone's ability. Now, the point I want to get onto is stats don't have to be used negatively. So if you can see someone who's got a 45% win rate and they do an average of 20,000 damage in T10 matches, you think, well, that player's not very good. But then in this match, this player, kills 4 boats and does, 150,000 damage and, basically wins the game for us. Then you can go, wow, this player had an amazing match. And you can give them a compliment. You can say, wow, well done for that. You played really well. I'm really impressed. Thank you for that. And you don't have to be negative. Why do people choose to be negative when they see bad stats? You can choose to be positive and say, wow, you're a good player, or you did pretty well compared to what you usually do. Well done. I appreciate that. Now, will wargaming stop stats? Because a lot of people don't like it. Basically, the consensus is in-game stat tracking provides some minor benefits, and there are some advantages you can get from it, but most definitely not worth the potential increase in toxicity. Meaning a lot of players are going to use their stats to go, I'm better than you, you lost because you're shit. So yeah, most people don't want it. Most people hate stats. I'd like to know your guys' opinion. I really enjoy stats. I love looking at numbers. I'm a numbers sort of person. I love looking at graphs. I love looking at charts. I love looking at tables and stuff like that and working out numbers. Such good fun. Anyway, so I'm definitely using the stat thing, although I do need to put my second screen in because I haven't actually got a second screen at the moment, and that isn't necessarily the best thing to do. But anyway, yeah, stats, tell me what you think. And lastly, I would like to get onto RPF, and RPF more specifically in ranked. Because the ranked meta is so different, it means that there are a lot of less players. That means that RPF can be more effective. Is it more effective to use RPF in ranked than random battles? Random battles are usually much more long and drawn out. You know, there are a lot more players there, it's slower, whereas ranked is quick. You get up there quickly. The DDs want to go in and cap and win it for their team. Now, if you can counteract that in the most efficient way possible, maybe RPF is that skill that you can use to find DDs or Belfasts or something like that to attack. I mean, basically, it means... Also, on the other hand, a lot of people haven't chosen RPF. There was a big furor about RPF is going to break the game. Everyone's going to choose it. There's nothing else you can choose. And then basically no one's chosen it. I rarely get detected. I think like 1 in every 10 games. I think I see CVs more commonly than people using RPF against me. Yeah, so, but does this give the enemy an advantage where they can find you and chase you down? Especially if you are in a DD or a Japanese DD, you want to be stealth torping, and there is a a cruiser and a DD hunting you down because they've got RPF and they're sharing that information, and you're unable to really be effective in your team. But if it's so good, if this argument is so good, why don't you just use it yourself? Why don't you use boats that can use RPF? So there's obviously a counteraction there. But it does come at a cost. Not everyone has 19-point captains, and in fact I would say most people don't have 19-point captains, especially on a T7 ship. Unless you're playing in a premium, then you can just take one of your top ones. But even then, a lot of people don't have premium captains. And that means you're going to have to change it at the cost of other skills. For example, in Atlanta, RPF could be really useful because they are very good anti-DD boats. And they may have to give up AFT or something equivalent, or some lower skill a couple of lower skills to be able to use RPF. And then, if RPF is only useful in ranked, therefore you're not really going to be using it in random battles, and if you do, you're at a much bigger disadvantage than if you were to use another skill. For example, with the Atlanta, you could use AFT, which is much more useful than RPF in a random battle. That means you're going to have to be retraining your captain each time, and honestly speaking, I think retraining your captain is way too expensive. You know, and you can't just change one skill, you have to change the whole lot. So imagine having to retrain it every time you want to switch from ranked to random, and having to spend 300 doubloons each time. That's kind of crazy, to be honest. But a lot of people don't understand that RPF is actually very easy to counter. Because the RPF doesn't actually show your location. It doesn't show you all your exact direction. Now that's the important. It doesn't show you exact direction. It shows the center of the grid square you're in. So if you put yourself on the corner of a grid square and you're relatively close to the RPF using enemy, it's pointing in the opposite directions. If you're behind an island and you're on one corner of a grid square, the RPF directional thing could be pointing in a completely different location. So how can you use RPF more effectively in ranked if you want to use it? Well, it's good for spotting out DDs, absolutely. You know, a lot of these DDs do like to hang back and be a bit more stealthy. You can also share this RPF information. That's happened quite a few times where someone's gone, there is a DDO in that corner going towards B or going towards A when we're deciding which side to go on. Sometimes one of our allied members goes, yes, they're going towards A, and we haven't actually spotted any of the ships yet. So we quickly turn towards B so we can cap B first, or go towards A and send the DD over towards B. And this means that we can make a strategical adjustment to our strategy when we're starting in a ranked battle. And that means it gives us an advantage. So RPF can definitely give you an advantage in that side. If you are in a boat that does have slower turrets, for example, a Leningrad is a good example, it does have quite slow turrets, you can ready your torpedoes, your ammo type, and your turrets to be exactly where the RPF direction is showing you, rather than you going off in the wrong direction and having to waste time moving around your turrets to actually be effective against the enemy boat. That's quite a good way of using RPF. A good ship type to use RPF would be possibly, for example, Mahana, which is an anti-DD. anti-DD destroyer. Okay, there we go. Anti-destroyer. Yeah, so it's very useful to know where the Japanese destroyers are. They do like to be hidden. If you can find them, you can chase them down. However, if you are chasing down, what you can, you've got to be careful that you don't go so far out of the battle to completely take away your usefulness. And especially if you're 2 or 3 of you are chasing down one little DD, taking them right out of the battle, this is not a good strategy to use. So be careful when you're using it in that way. Also another good thing is if you have got RPF and the only ship that you can see, or the closest ship that you can see, is 10 kilometers away, and you're making your way towards there, but your RPF is showing a completely different direction. Actually, this is useless going over there. I can go this direction, which I know is, well, I don't know is, well, yeah, it is. Is closer. And it means you can attack a ship that hasn't necessarily been spotted, but you can go there and be closer and be more effective in your team. Anyway, my opinion on RPF is that, yes, it is super useful, but I wouldn't say it's that useful. It did not really change the game so much. A lot of people haven't chosen it. CVs are more common. It does have an advantage. It can help you kill more, but it can help you kill more. It doesn't actually make you kill more. For example, on the Atlanta, AFT will make you kill more because you have a longer range and therefore you can stay hidden better and you can do more damage. So RPF is an information skill and not a making your ship better skill. Anyway, I think I'm going to leave it there. I hope you can tell me exactly what you think on those 3 interesting subjects that have been brought up recently in the World of Warships community. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to me. That would be hugely appreciative. I'm a new channel and I hope to get lots of motivation from lots of subscribers. Comment on my videos and tell me what you think. Thank you for watching and I'll catch you guys later.